We're live on another stream on the Crab Walk of Shame Twitch channel.
What's
And
up,
it's
everybody?
me. Hey, everybody. That was Habib over there, Habibi Ali. Speaking over there on the right side of the screen. And over here on the left, it's Demetrius as always. I'm just Demetrius.
Just
And just Demetrius, yep. And we are your cast for today's podcast. How's it going, y'all? How's it going, Habibi?
It's going all right, man. Going all right. Times they are crazy still.
Yeah.
I can't wait till that song is not relevant.
Mm,
I feel like it's been relevant for too long. It's time to put
yeah,
an end to
man.
Bob Dylan.
Well, worry not, Habibi, because I have the feeling that after this election season is over, it's all going
Oh,
to
yeah.
go away.
After
I think
that,
it's all.
though,
I think it's all going to go away
the
after all the votes are
times
cast.
the times stabilize after the 2020 election.
Man, it feels like we've all been poured into like a live action role playing game, like against our will, with
Dude,
all
it
this
got
stuff.
really, really heavy really fast, It became the real life Mortal Kombat like instantly. It's
It
like
was
you'll never believe
February.
it. The final enemy is the President of the United States.
I mean, February things were cool, and then March things started to get crazy, and then it's just been everybody's been pulled into it. Mask
Yeah,
versus no mask, all this
and
stuff. Like things got hectic in our real
you know,
lives.
it really it caught up to everybody real fast because I mean, literally just before this podcast, I was talking to my roommate and we were just talking about how for him and I in particular, like it's really interesting because yeah, man, shit was like our 2020 happened, I think, for the most part in 2019 and a little bit of 2018. And to be honest, like maybe 5 or 10 years before that. But like it's been crazy, like I think what happened? What happened? Well, that's a stupid question. COVID happened. But it's crazy how COVID just unveiled everything. Just everything. Like I'm pretty sure there are some like family members who don't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it's real political. It became a political issue.
Like everything's been, I feel like, political, but like this became like a deciding factor. One of my worries was when everybody went into hiding, like one of my genuine worries, just because I'm always generally kind of curious about this, but I genuinely had a worry people were going to become a little bit more tribal when they went into lockdown mode. Yeah, I worried about that. I worried like, you could say racism was going to go on a spike up and all these other sorts of things. I was just like, just because they're going to be surrounded only with what you know, probably. And like, that's going to reinforce what you think you're supposed to be seeing out there, So it's like, even if it's just for like 2 months after going, eons where we're just out and about and mingling with each other, making mistakes, making successes, to suddenly stop that. And like within 1 month, we went into this kind of like this tunnel vision mode where it was like, my way is the only way. It's like, bro, like we can all really easily still get along with each other. Nobody has to completely just detach themselves from their family and friends.
Yeah. Yeah, there really was a lot of tribalism. A lot of, I mean, extremism. I don't know. It's like extremists got to speak for both sides. I don't know why it is. The extremist voice always seems to be amplified. Maybe because it's so extreme and so loud. It's like, if you got one guy out there just like, fuck you, fuck, you're going to listen to that guy. Like he's out there screaming, fuck you.
You will, and like just to naturally combat him, you're gonna scream just as loud, right? Just to
Yeah,
get him like to
yeah,
be heard. So it's like the volume really is like till the end of time. Volume is going to be what people use. It will never really be reason and the best solution for everybody. Like for those who are just joining us, Dee and I were talking before this podcast just for a second about the concept of unconditional love. which I think is a really interesting concept. You know what I mean? Like, you don't find that so much in this day and age. There's no room for that. It's escaped us, you know? Yeah, I think people are still kind of like screaming out for it in some way or another. If there's an obstacle to unconditional love, it's really, this is what sucks about it. It's so easy to exploit because I think the real obstacle is ourselves, right? Because the idea by very nature of unconditional love is that anybody can do any fucking thing to you and you gotta love them, right? So it's like that's not up to them then to make unconditional love work. It's up to you.
Yeah.
uh, so like you can get so easily abused by that. It's so easy to be exploited by that. But if we're really fighting for it, you know, like if people were really fighting for unconditional love, we'd find a way to really love Donald Trump right now. I mean, even if you disagreed with him, like you just really, really, really try to find something to like about that dude. And I think I have. I think I told you, like the dude doesn't drink. I respect that. But is there a line? Is unconditional love unreasonable? And is there a line that should be drawn? That's my question to you, Demetrius.
Oh, to me, I heard you talking. I was like,
You
I
see how
wonder
I
where you
just
were
like
going to
kind of
go
spin
with
that, spin that,
this.
spin that.
um,
It's all on this
yeah,
card I had. I planned that question.
unconditional love is unreasonable, and I think a lot of people don't consider it from the angle that you presented it from, which is, oh, well, anybody can do anything to me. Because I think if you stop and really think about that right there, that in and of itself, I think, will make you stop and say, I don't know about this unconditional love.
Mm,
Anybody can
mm,
do anything to me, and I'm just going to keep
mm,
loving them. Like,
mm, mm. Right.
that's a tall order.
That's true. That's true.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think most people think about unconditional love from the aspect of receiving that love, of like,
Sure.
I can be
Sure.
a screw up and this person's going to keep loving me. And it's like, I think
Right.
as long as I keep loving them, they're going to keep loving me. It's kind of a fail safe,
Yeah.
traditionally, I
No,
think is
I
how it
get
is.
that. I definitely get that. That's why I think I told you like I always thought about it a lot as a kid because you're exactly right. I think people think of it in terms of like how can I receive that, or shouldn't I
Right.
receive that? Aren't I owed that? Um, but I really try to break down the science of it, and I think the science of it only works if you do it. You like if you are unconditionally loving. I think the trickier word more than unconditional is love in and of itself, right? Because love we're suggesting here is just to be nothing but like appraising and congratulatory and celebratory of that person, when really love can very much be like, hey man, like I think you've had that poster behind on your wall there for long enough. You know what I mean? Like, I think it may be time to get a new poster because the Twin Towers aren't around anymore. So I mean, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it could be tough. It could be like it'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you should be loving my Twin Towers, but really, it's like, oh, I get it. You're trying to do something. You're trying to update me because you think that's what's important or something like that. So it's love is really the kind of word I think people need to come to grips with. Like, I think unconditional works. Unconditional to me just simply means I'm not giving up on you.
Hmm.
I think that's what I hear when I hear unconditional. And I feel like that slowly slipped away, and the way I guess the first thing I think about is like even our correction facilities, right? Like who's been given up on more than anybody? Just it's sad to say it, but it's those dudes. And like if it was unconditional though, you would almost have like, to put it crudely, like an army of really compassionate human beings. Jail cells are fully populated and we could use some great minds who can think outside the system of cruelty. And I shouldn't say cruelty, maybe the system of conditionality, which can sometimes feel cruel. In fact, it's almost impossible to avoid the feeling of cruelty with conditionality, given that we,
Yeah, I
you know
mean,
what I mean?
I do understand that, and I guess I would have to ask. I mean, when you say cruelty, it's just sometimes people make
That's
it
subjective too. Yeah.
difficult. I think, yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people make like, I can understand the idea of I want to like everybody, but again, I mean, it goes back to that whole thing of being taken advantage of, though. I mean, it's like I can want to like you, sure, but if again, if you're a person who's taking advantage of me or
Mhm.
doing other things that are just like damaging to the
Yeah.
relationship or
Yeah.
damaging to me, it's like,
Right.
how can I? And is
Right.
it
Right.
cruel then to make that person an outsider?
See, that's the thing. I would say, like, what would, if you were just to take the model of unconditional love as I'm saying it, you wouldn't push them as an outsider, but out of love, you would, like what you're doing when you like woke up and were like, I was still pissed at my uncle, so I went on, I went on Facebook and I just said this thing about him. That's love to me, especially if he's your Facebook friend. You know what I mean? Like, or especially if you think he's going to see that in some way, because it's like, dude, I'm trying to get through to you somehow. I'm trying to connect to you. I'm trying to like, uh, you know what I mean? Like, it's it's tough to do that with people face to face sometimes, which I find really interesting about social media that people don't talk about too much because there's that documentary out there right now that's like tearing up social media like crazy, which I mean, rightfully so. But I also think, I think social media can be a good place to kind of cool down and kind of like see another person's point of view a little bit. And, I'm just using that as an example of how we can maybe respond to somebody who is maybe abusive to us and uh, hurtful to ourselves and really to the family unit, just because of their attitude and their things that maybe they don't see because they're in their system.
Yeah.
But I mean, how my question is like, maybe it won't affect us anymore, and that's all that matters in the end. But how are they going to change their mind? How are you going to eliminate the threat? I guess is a better way to put it. Of this dude coming back to your life and just starting this whole shit all over again. Like, it sounds like it's possible, no? It sounds like he could, if he wanted to, he'd just be like, I know y'all hate me, but I'm back.
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, you gotta have boundaries with people. You gotta let people know what is or isn't
yeah,
allowed. I mean,
I
and some
agree. I
people
agree.
some people are just gonna do what they want to do, but it's just like, well, I gotta do what I gotta do. I mean, whatever that means to you. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, if you say to him, you're not welcome in this house, and he
yeah,
continues to come around, I mean, what can you do? You got to get a restraining order at that point.
right,
You got
right.
to make it illegal and have somebody, some way to get him away, if
Yeah.
that's what it's going to be.
Now, are you just the only one not cool with him, or is like your mom and everybody else kind of like, dude, like,
My mother, like, that's her only sibling living, but I mean, like, nobody really liked what he was doing. It's just they didn't
yeah,
want to speak up. They didn't, because it's
right.
hard to tell somebody you don't like what they're doing, because it's like this can be a confrontation, because you take a situation where it's
Mm-hmm.
calm and cool and
Mm-hmm.
it's like this could be a confrontation, an
Sure,
argument.
sure, sure.
People don't want
Yeah, no, it's a
that.
very I've been there and it did not end well. Because it was as cool-headed as I think I am. Yeah, it felt like an attack on the other end of that. On the other end, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the extent of this your uncle is. I'm not sure I would agree with what his behavior is and what he's doing. Um, but do you think there's any way though that you could approach it and calmly and be like, "Hey, I want to start this off with no, like I think you might not like this conversation, but I think you're a good guy. I think it'd be great if this conversation went well, and you understood where I'm coming from, and that I know, that kind of thing."
Yeah, I
Not
mean, the
depending.
thing is, I think most people just avoid the uncomfortable conversation. Like they don't even
Mm,
think to the point of approaching it in that kind of a way. It's just because it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, they don't want to have it. But
mm,
yeah, I mean, if you have an uncomfortable conversation in a respectful way, a reasonable person should be able to respect it. And if they're an unreasonable person, they're going to, have an unreasonable reaction, but that's them being
mm.
unreasonable because they
Right,
just do
right,
what they want to do.
right. Well, then, yeah, you at least tried everything you can do to reason with them.
Right.
Like that's all you can do sometimes because some people just are truly unreasonable, and like
Yeah.
and that's a headache, and that's like, how do you deal with that? And they're just exploiting, the family card. Like, I don't care if I'm unreasonable, I'm family. That's really,
Yeah.
really, really. I know what that. Like, I feel, yeah. You don't feel like yeah. You
I
don't
mean, I
think
think
highly
it's
of
a
that
lot
anymore.
harder though. I think it's a lot harder to be unreasonable once you've been called out. But I
Mm.
think a lot of people take advantage of the fact that most people are non-confrontational. And so
Mm.
because they
Mm.
don't want to confront you, they're just going to let you do it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. It's hard to break patterns and not startle people. It's best to stand up for yourself and you know what you really believe in. And all. I guess I mean I still think this can operate in the scope, in the general scope of unconditional love.
unconditional love, you son of a gun.
I honestly, I told you I had not thought about this concept since I was like 10 years old, like 11 years old. Like this idea of unconditional love. I don't know why I'm thinking about it lately, but maybe the world could use a pinch of it. I think that was another question I always wondered about unconditional love. Can you have just a little bit of it? Isn't it all or nothing kind of a thing, right? Like
Well, if
isn't
you
it
say no, you can't say unconditional love with conditions. If you put
exactly.
conditions on the shit, that ain't unconditional no more.
I think that's what my family used to kind of do. Like my family, they're gonna tell their kid like I don't love you that much. So they're gonna like I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm like, well, put your money where your mouth is. Not I would do anything crazy or anything like that, but then I think I'd throw like a hypotheticals and be like, oh, no, you're going to hell for that. It's like, what? What is with that? What's with that? And then I went to God and what does God do about love and
I mean,
all that
yeah,
other good stuff.
God's a good example. He should accept you into heaven no matter what you do. But he puts conditions on that shit. So
Now we're getting the hot button issue. I'm just waiting for the screen to slide over and God shows up in the center. Like, I heard you bitches were talking about. I've been thinking, I think you can work God into the equation if once again you put the system as a shoe on your foot. It's a weird metaphor and a weird way to use it, but what I mean is uh, we are more than often pretty pissed at God, I think. I don't know, at least that might be me. Like I mentioned earlier, I might have some anger issues, but I get pretty angry sometimes. I'm like, God's an interesting place to point the finger if we're going to point fingers. But I think if you work in the realm of unconditional love, you you start wondering about things. You start like reading verses and things like even like he rested on the seventh day, and it's like, yeah, yeah, because you were tired, you know, like you're not you're God, but you're not like what I necessarily think God's supposed to be, like it's like when your dad comes home. At least for me, I was like, you don't want to play catch. It's like, dude, he's 50 years old and he just worked all goddamn day. Like, like he ain't gonna be, and that's not his fault. So it's like with God, maybe I really think God, in terms of coming to peace and incorporating the whole unconditional love thing, I like to think that I think of God as an artist. I think of him as a creator, or it as a creator, or her as a creator. Um, and the thing that artists hate the least, and when you will see an artist act absolutely the worst, is when they feel unappreciated. Like that's all it takes. That's all it takes. You can pay an artist in peanuts. You can pay us in, whatever, but at least appreciate me. You know what I mean? Like, I know life is hard. I know you can't give me everything, but just tell me that you like my piece. Tell me that, you saw it. Tell me that, give me some feedback on it. That's all an artist asks for, some kind of feedback. An audience craves an audience like, I don't know, like a bird, the sky. I don't know, that's stupid, but it's true, I think. And God probably works the same way. If there is such an entity, like why would it work differently? All of this stuff is creation on some level or another. So why would not that mentality and sentimentality of an artist apply to this creator? You know what I mean? It's like it can't hurt to give appreciation. It really just can, for so many reasons. For the ego of God and for the sake of like it's pretty cool even just to look at. I think the ego of God might be real. Look at Greek mythology. Jesus Christ, the ego's on God. No pun intended. Jesus Christ. It was kind of maybe the most altruistic of the the figures, the humble carpenter. But man, I think about that sometimes. I think maybe there is something about that. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you think, like, as an artist, what is it you crave the most out of your creations? Like, do you think there's something to that we want some validation, we want some?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, creative energy is kind of the God energy. I mean, it really is. Like I've thought about that a lot in terms
Interesting.
of the stuff we create, because it's like, yeah, you create universes, and that's like the big thing with the Herald and improv is like you create like three universes, and then you bring them together
Yeah, yeah,
at the end of the show. And definitely, I mean, in writing, like you make these people, you give them backstories,
yeah.
histories, all that kind of stuff. I was
You get
watching,
attachments.
huh?
I say you grow attachments, right, to your characters that you write for and the art that you create.
Yeah, 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 you definitely can.
All right,
Oh my
cool.
God, the internet.
I
Fuck the
know.
internet,
Fucking 2020, man.
man. Man, that's what I want to say. Sucks. I don't know why people are so crazy about it. It's overrated. But yeah, man, creative energy, making something out of nothing. It's always so impressive to me. Like when you're able to see something in your mind's eye and actually make it happen. Like I think I told you before. I don't know. I think I'm cutting in and out. But when I told you
It's
about
okay.
like cold calling people to
Yeah,
get these improv teaching gigs and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that, like that was always so amazing to me. It's just like, oh my God, like I saw
Right.
something in my head and I wanted to make it happen, made it
Absolutely.
happen. Like that's always impressive, that's always impressive
Absolutely.
to me.
Most definitely. Most definitely. It's like, and that's a very interesting thing to think of too, actually. Like, that's maybe a new way for me to look at it as well. Like, in terms of God being the creator and having that kind of creative side mentality. Like, I get what you mean about there being a God energy to creativity. But what if there's like that creative sentimentality to God where it's like, hey, I'm just glad I made this. You know what I mean? Like this is cool that it's out here. There was nothing here before this. Nobody else was
Right.
along that I was doing this. And this is my little project. I don't know what, do you have humans on your, little so yeah, I wonder if that's all it takes for God too. I wonder if God needs no appreciation from we humans. And that's the way I've been thinking about it, and that's the way I tend to think about it because maybe it's just my insecurity as an artist. I'm curious, like, what do people think about my art? I am curious about that sometimes. Um, I don't think that's the end all and be all to being an artist, of course. Like we were talking again earlier backstage, like so much of what I think improv is something that should be almost hidden. not every part of it, but so much of it should be personal, I
Mm.
think. Um, but again, these are just ideas I have for performance and theater and God.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
probably
think
God. He doesn't. Yeah, because in a way, he's probably the best audience you could have. You know, like, what kind of praise can you give to God that he can't give to himself? It's
yeah,
like, God, check out this pussy. He's like, no worries, I'm gonna masturbate later. It's gonna be awesome. Wow,
yeah.
wow.
When you talk about feedback, I think it was Walt Disney I saw. He was talking about, like, it was a, obviously like old TV show, but he was talking about the instant feedback of TV compared to movies, because he's like, we
Hmm.
spend months and months making this stuff and then we don't know if it's any good. Then he's like, but with TV, you put it out there and tomorrow, and it's like,
That's
and now
true.
we've got the
That's
internet, like instantaneous Twitter. As
yeah,
soon as
yeah,
something is happening, you get that response
true.
of like how people feel about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Live
Maybe
chat. We
that's.
got live chat right here.
I know it's true. It's true, and I don't think about it that much. But there's probably a big part of that that's worked its way into the artist reward system. Like that we want it right away, that we need it right away. That it's not just about it being a project that we fulfilled that was in our mind's eye, but it's about people's look on it and take on it and commentary on it. Um, that's true. That's true. It probably has definitely worked its way into our minds. It sounds stupid, but like even since I opened up that YouTube channel, I opened up my own YouTube channel like this year, I think, during quarantine because I just had all this time on my hands and I had these videos. And truly, I never cared too much about ever saving my projects. I have still like probably 10, 12, 15, 20 projects, this film projects from when I was like 18 onwards that I just kind of did with my friends. I don't know where they are. They're all on DVD tape somewhere. But just the making of it, the exciting creativity process of it was all I wanted. I mean, that's really just where I was like, my mind just my heart was happiest and everything. But then as soon as I got this YouTube channel, I was uploading a couple of things on there, and I'll catch myself. In all honesty, I'll catch myself every couple of weeks, every 3 weeks. Let's go. I wonder if we got any new views on that. I was like, I wonder if anybody commented on this one, which I just never had before. I never really did that before. And it's like, probably nothing terrible about that. I don't think I overdo it. Sometimes I do wonder, am I overdoing it? But I don't know. I don't know. I guess there's a time and place for it for sure. I think we live in a really interesting time where, again, I think social media gets the timing of everything is just weird. Social media is now just getting the biggest bashing of its life, when in a way I feel like it might be also incredibly vital more than ever before. Uh, the reason I say this is because why? What is social media a platform per individual? And why is it so vital? Because look at the poster of who's the chances of who's going to become president. You know what I mean? Like those are your two options. That does not represent. That is not the best America can do. That is just clearly like there is no say of you in that. I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it that that's what the majority of us came up with. So we know that there's something kind of fishy there. So yeah, social media is probably a very important time to be alive and to. Oh, there's rain going on. Oh, maybe that's why the internet's been shitty. Oh, the storming and raining. Um, sorry, I just heard the trees blowing and everything outside. Um, but yeah, no, I think that it's pretty important to have a sense of individuality during a time where decisions are being made for you. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier about unconditional love and that kind of stuff. We need boundaries. We need to have our identity. We need to have our say so more than just kind of being more and more told so what you're just going to have for your life. We have such more control over our lives and systems than we realize. And shit, man, we all just got to take a pause once in a while in some way or another and be like, I have more control over this than I thought I do. This is gonna sound crazy, kind of a slight tangent. Hope you're ready for this. I just realized that though, like, so I told you I came up kind of religious, yeah,
Yeah.
and um, my family was pretty religious, and we had to pray 5 times a day and all that kind of stuff. And talk about, growing up and knowing you're growing up in a system. Like you have to follow certain rules in order to have this kind of outcome and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then it dawned on me. I'm not sure when. I'm almost positive it was right around after I took drugs for the first time. But it kind of just hit me. It was like, wait a second, this is like an organic system. This is like centuries, years old. But it's only comprised out of the people who comprise it. That's the only thing that makes this thing up. It has no that's its power. And there's literature and there's all that kind of stuff, but it's always going to be the interpretation of the people who are practicing it. Always. So why do I need to do it an old way that I don't believe with, that I don't have any connection to? It's not even, almost, I was thinking to myself, it's not even rebellious to this thing. It's in the service to this religion, whatever, this faith, this order to humanity to be yourself. Um, Hassan Minaj, he was on Khan Academy recently with Sal Khan, and it was a long not TED talk. It was kind of like a TED talk, but it was really interesting. It was conversation about getting into the arts and performing and all that kind of stuff. And he talked about immigrants and particularly at the end. And he was talking about like how like my parents' generation was more about assimilating, coming into this country and trying to be a part of it in some way or another. Whereas me and my peers, and you included, are finding a way not just to assimilate, but to form, you know what I mean? To be more proactive in the conversation. We're not so concerned with being invisible and going along with everything. We're kind of saying, hey, you know what? This is just as much mine as it is yours, and I'm going to have my voice said. So I think this all ties somewhat into uh, conditional love and unconditional love at some level, on some level, because I think you have to know you're going to always be on the same team, even if you disagree. It's Martin Luther King said it, dude, and he said a lot of stuff, a lot of amazing things. I think the idea of being agreeably disagreeable is perhaps the most profound thing he said. That more than anything else is what's needed right now. He said so many amazing things, but man, how much of an ointment that is right now, and that's so hard to do. You said it with such few
Yeah.
words. You made it sound so easy.
Yeah. Agreeably disagreeable.
That's the hidden key, I think. That's gonna. I mean, he really studied this country. You know what I mean? He really understood how we are going to always have these different systems, how we are not exactly going to see eye to eye, but how to still do it. And maybe I've mentioned this before, but I think maybe less poetically, the dude who said it, also very well, was Jon Stewart. When he did that rally to restore sanity / keep fear alive with Stephen Colbert. I love that rally. I was one of those few dorks who was watching it on C-SPAN live the day of. I didn't go to work that day. I was just so excited. And he had like Ozzy Osbourne on there along with Cat Stevens and Yusuf Islam doing this like crazy mashups. And it's just all this really great music and comedy and all this other stuff. And at the very end, he came out and he was being very sincere to the audience. And he said this line that I'm going to butcher, but he was like, "You'll be fed this every day that we're a very divided America. You're fed every day that you live in a red America or a blue America." Remember when people used to say that, red or blue America? And he said, "But the truth is, you'll never see something like you'll never see a realer America than at rush hour in the morning on the New Jersey Turnpike into New York City." He was talking about how each car just kind of allows the other one, you go in, hang on 1 second, I'm gonna go, hang on.
Yeah.
The organization that's required to actually get shit done, and we do every goddamn day, and we're just not given the credit for it. And that's, I think, fair too. I think that's kind of being like agreeably disagreeable.
What I wanted to say in response to that, I mean, I do remember that the Jon Stewart bit, but it's just
Yeah.
like, seeing cars as cars, I think is just as relevant as seeing people as people. I mean, because it's like people, and I think it's different, like when people start looking at cars that have Trump stickers or whatever stickers on them,
Mhm.
then you can identify them as something other. Then you
I
can
think
choose to act differently. Car on the street is.
I think you're
I think I
cutting
might
out a
have cut
little
out at
bit.
some point. Yeah, I think I might
Yeah.
have cut out at some point during that. But basically, I was
Or is
saying it's like seeing cars as cars, seeing people as people, and I was saying, but when you put those labels on them, just like, the Trump stickers or whatever stickers, then you can otherize them all over again.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder why. I never really. Yeah, I don't think bumper stickers are a very good idea. Like they do nothing but aggravate and divide. Like you're not winning anybody over with your, argument. And yeah, it's a very strange thing, and the people who are going to already agree with you, they don't need to see it. So it's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
It's all very confrontational, and I don't think we need to do it. But um, it's really like it's right there on neighborhood yards, right, with like the signs and the lawn and all that. Like right around here, dude, it is so. It feels like, what is it? I'm sure there are like 50 Christmas movies like this, but where the neighbors are competing with the Christmas lights and that kind of thing, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, how do you? How do you? It's like, my God, just get a room already. My goodness gracious, you two need to blow off some weird steam. I don't know. That's what's happening right around every time, and it's really like, how is nobody noticing this? Like everybody's just like acting the fool. It's like everybody's still only got a toupee and thinks nobody's noticing. It's really weird. And it's just like, this is not productive. But but it might go into that, I guess, that whole thing of maybe politics has become quite a bit of like a sports culture kind of thing. Uh, this idea of like having a team, and you wear your team's jersey the day of the game, something like that. It's uh, I don't think it's healthy. I think, it's kind of like, it's very American of us. Again, I think we're a very storytelling based country. I think that's a strong attribute, but I think it's rooted in like a lot of tragedy too. Like we don't, like Rome and the Colosseum, they would reenact stories of the great battles and everything for people's entertainment. Now we just can't wait. It's like the present now needs to be the battle and the great bloody story. It's like, God damn, dude, just wait. We should probably focus more on Civil War reenactments rather than having to. I feel like
Yeah.
we want our entertainment so bad these days that we don't realize the casualties for are serious and real too. You know what I mean? Like, and I've been on those front lines where I just kind of get like tired of it. I'm numbed out to it. And I guess I criticize things a lot, but I also feel like I'm in a pretty good position to do it. Like I've been a people's like congressmen and city officials in their offices, working at their offices, and people would come to their door and be like, "I have a meeting. My power's off. The shower's not running. My kid's hungry and tired, and I'm tired." And I'm like, they're not here right now. I am so sorry. Like, they were just irresponsible and didn't care about you. Like, you probably deserve better. You probably do. and I'm just sorry. Like, if I knew where to flip the switch, I would do it. Like, I swear to you, I would. But I buy. What am I gonna do? I have no
Yeah,
control. I have no control.
yeah.
And so it's like I feel like it falls on me to criticize at least. You know what I mean? I think that's the smallest sliver of control I have is that maybe. Did you read that thing Seinfeld wrote? I haven't even read it yet. I just heard about it. I guess somebody criticized New York with the shutdown and everything, all the COVID restrictions they have. Somebody said like New York will never come back. The comedy clubs are done and all this kind of stuff. And apparently Jerry Seinfeld took out a piece in the Times and like wrote a whole rebuttal to it. And it sounded pretty good. I haven't read it yet, but
Nah, I don't know about that. That's the first I heard about it.
the reason I bring it up, he was saying like they asked him, why did you write? Why did you take out? He was like, I felt like nobody else was saying anything, so I had to say it. I think that's a very comedian instinct. you know, it's like I just can't. I'm sorry. I know I'm going to be the party pooper here, but like,
Oh man. All these divisions, man. Comedians are going to be the ones that bridge the divide, I
yeah,
think.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. Definitely. I don't know, man. I have a friend who's buying a trailer bed. It sounds like he's been inspired by what Chappelle did, and I think was Iowa or Ohio? Where's Chappelle's farm?
I think it's in Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. Yeah. I think he's inspired by that. He's like gonna pull. He's bought this giant tractor for comedians and performers to perform on because it'd be on his stage and COVID restrictions. A lot of places are closed. He's in St. Louis. I'm thinking about it. It's wild. It's like this dude. I'm telling you, man. Maybe you've heard me talk about him before. His name is Jerry McJennan. He's like
I
he
don't
was
know.
my boxing coach for a little bit. He's also like a comedian part time himself. He's an interesting cat. He's an interesting cat. We should definitely perform on his stage whenever he gets that going. I think that'd be cool. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Crazy times, man. I got this itch to like perform again. At the same time, I feel like reality is making me be like boring
You know,
old man.
you know what's too ridiculously funny to not point out? It's like
Huh.
your hair looks like your beard. And it's like when you turn your head, when you turn your head away from your hair, it's like you're disconnecting. It's like the costume, like the rest of your beard.
That's pretty cool, actually. I can see that. That'd be awesome if this was down here. Shoot. I feel like this is a Little Rascals.
Oh god, it was too
That's
funny. It's like, oh, what's going on over there?
I've been talking so long. My beard's literally grown out.
Sometimes I'm looking at it and I'm believing it, but then you turn your head, I'm like, oh,
You
that's not
better
his
check
real
your
one.
watch. Like, how long has this motherfucker been talking? I'm going on and on. But yeah, this is good stuff. I wonder, I don't know why I've been thinking about unconditional love lately, but I feel like it is definitely connected to uh, how we should. I think it's connected to what we should always think about and contemplate, not necessarily implement, but just contemplate the benefits of it, man. I think, because we are in so much of a society that's so against it. So even for contrarian's sake, we have nothing to lose. um, Unconditional love. I think everybody at home needs to rip off their bumper stickers off their cars. If I could start a revolution tonight, that would be it. Just get
Mhm.
experimental. Just be like, I wonder if that long-haired, bearded, Jesus-looking dude with a hat is got a point about the bumper stickers. I do. It's a very good point. It's the one good point I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, because, yeah, it's, again, just seeing cars as cars, just seeing people as people. And there is a lot of division, it seems, with the social media ideologies. Like you got to be hardcore repping whatever you're
Mhm.
into. You know, you can't just be
Yeah.
whatever. You know, you got to be repping your set.
It's and people will tell you what you are, and that's what's wild to me a little bit about, and I get what you mean about both sides having some violence and stuff to it, but and not to get like straight into like politics and terminology and stuff like that, but one of them that weirds me out. I know you don't like the construct of BIPOC, BIPOC, and BLM necessarily, but to me, one of the weirdest ones is Antifa. You know what I mean? Or what's up? You good?
I don't know. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm all good.
Literally sure saw it goes. Uh, Antifa, man, that's a weird one to me. That's like because the abbreviation is obviously anti-fascist, yeah. And like, I thought that's like, I thought that was the point. I still think isn't that the point? Did we change aren't we anti-fascist? Like, isn't that what the whole Constitution and Declaration of
Yeah.
Independence is about and everything?
Uh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, I think that's like built. We are like an anti-fascist country. Like, we go to war against fascists. Like, I don't know everything about that, and to suddenly to call it like a terrorist group, and I think these are pretty much people who were like, you're breaking the rules of society, and like we have to stop you. We have to draw the boundaries. um, and like then we somehow villainize that. Like you're saying, like you can't, like you just can't not label yourself, or you're going to get labeled. I think somebody would call me leftist, probably. That's my guess. Just because, like, if I was on social media, there are things I hate about Democrats, and there are things I hate about Republicans. I think conservatives have valid points. I also think they have very dumb points. Overall, I think liberals are sometimes their worst enemy, and the idea for a good thing. So I would consider myself like nuanced, but I'll get labeled. You know what I mean? Like there's no,
Yeah.
and then there's no real argument to have. You're just I guess you call it like the straw man argument. You're like, or straw man. It's a bad case for an argument when like you're just attacking a straw man. It's not like the ideas, but. And I
It's
think
what you
people ask for that,
think.
though. I think you don't help your cause. I don't think you help eliminating the straw man fallacy. That's what it is. You don't eliminate the straw man fallacy by putting bumper stickers all over yourself. I don't think it helps. I don't think it's. I think you're just
Yeah.
asking for it, man. But yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so I
sorry, I
don't
didn't mean to
know.
go all politics there, but and Antifa. One last thing about Antifa, I'm pretty sure people think it's like an Arabic terrorist organization, which just kind of pisses me off a little bit personally too. It's like I think we're about a generation away before people start saying that with like the strongest Iranian accent, and it's like that's not what it is. It's no relation to Al Qaeda. But anyway,
So
that's the
wait,
last I'll speak of it.
wait. But I had one thought. Like, wait.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wasn't really clear about what you thought about them because it seems like you crossed the street a couple times. It's like you
On
went across
Antifa?
the street and went right back across it. It's like I don't know. What do you think about them? I mean, have you been watching Portland and Seattle and all that
I haven't been
stuff?
following it that much. I mean, my thoughts on them are this. I think they're well-intentioned individuals who should probably be supported by the state, I think overall. I don't think they should be a terrorist organization. I mean, I not to say I'm an expert on Antifa, but from just the name alone, and I know from what they were starting revolting against, with deportations and disappearings and police brutality going unchecked, all that stuff, corruption. Like this is the stuff we have like city elected officials and attorneys to do, and like it's not even this is not bad. It's not drug dealing. It's not prostitution. It's not you're not destroying your society and your community. At least as far as what I know of Antifa, it's not that. I've seen people I have conservative friends who spew weird stuff and say like Antifa is like pedophiles and QAnon, and they're all the same thing. It's like, I'm not sure that's actually true at all. I'm not too entirely convinced of that. So, uh, do I think they're going to make mistakes? Yeah, especially because they don't have support. They're by definition lawless. They've just been labeled outlaws, and yet they're still fighting for something and platform by speech for something just and good. So it's going to end up, I don't think you're going to always have pleasant results with a group like Antifa, but I don't think anyone should be surprised by it. It's like a dad who just like his daughter was just killed. You gonna blame that guy for demanding justice? You gonna blame him for doing everything it takes? You gonna blame him for being rageful and like punching a cop if the cop told him, I know where your daughter is and it doesn't matter? Like, I would be boiling. It would make all the sense in the world to me. And I would say, the cop probably won't tell you where your daughter is or whatever because you're punching him. But I understand why you're punching him. I get the frustration.
You're fucking punching him. You're like, I understand why you won't tell you. It's like,
Tell me everything
you're fucking, no, stop punching me, you piece of shit.
No, I mean, I'm saying, if he doesn't tell you, then you punch him, right?
Right.
And he's less inclined to tell you because you punch him.
Yes, exactly. It's a cycle. You're fucking yourself.
If that's what they're doing, if that's all they're doing, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna. I'm not sure that the results are always gonna be positive if all they do is throw the punches. But yeah, the punches are totally understandable.
Yeah, it's understandable why you would punch, but also there's consequences to that punch.
Absolutely. And I wonder that even with some of the great movements, back in the day, the Nation of Islam movement, the Black Panther movement, the movements that have embraced violence as a tactic, like full on embraced it. Not that they were violent, that they executed violence themselves. It was always self-defense taught. But I've studied it, and there's a great reasoning for violence to occur. I mean, it's a reason it's hardwired into us. It's a very useful thing to have in the back pocket. It's a great last resort, and I think you're seeing people coming to last resorts. Like, I mean, not to say she should join Antifa or something, but I was telling you earlier before the podcast, there was shit going on in the neighborhood that was just nuts again. The neighbor she's got a lot of problems, and like literally no one to go to. Like, there's really, it doesn't seem like there is. Part of my job now, it's not my job, is trying to find maybe a caseworker that could take her case on, that'd be willing to like literally go through step by step. But she's apparently gone or trying to go through all this stuff. And that's just my next door neighbor. That's happening literally every neighborhood is this way. Like what you described, what do you say, like when you're born in the inner city, it's like, how do you put it? It's like this
being born in a toilet bowl and the people around you hit the plunger.
Because there's no escaping it. There's no escaping it. Right? It's like,
and people want you to go down.
Yeah, that's exactly right, bro. I think you're exactly right. I see that. And to me, I would get why she would join something like Antifa. I would get it. It's like, who the fuck is going to listen to me? Who? No one is. The police aren't listening to her. Police have been here how many times? No one's going to listen to her. Apparently, it's like bad sci-fi. It's like really bad sci-fi. It's just like, I don't know. And yet people are getting so angry at each other with the bumper sticker stuff. And it's like, there are so many more real issues, and it's like we're signing up to become just new members of an old game where you're just like watching people fight against each other. It's like, it's a sock and robot thing. I don't want to be another toy, and it's, there's so many actual battles to be had. There's so many real battles to be fought. And I think that's what you're kind of seeing out there in Portland and on the streets of America today. I mean, we're living in, I told you my my science teacher in 1999 couldn't have been more fucking wrong at all. Like, you will not see interesting things in your lifetime, sir. I'm seeing America being reshaped and reborn in the streets and being fed up in a way that never has been before. And I'm only
That's really
33. This could
interesting.
go on for decades. This energy, this angst. This is a young energy rooted in a very old problem, so it can last a very long time.
I don't know. I don't know. I've
But yeah,
put
I'm
my
not.
thoughts
Again,
out
I'm
there
not saying
about
I
it.
condone violence or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, having studied it and having knowing, human nature, you're not getting rid of violence. It's not like it just goes away. It's certain things are inevitable, man. And again, if we personify gods, even gods were extremely violent and vicious to each other. You know what I mean? Like, is it supposed to go away? Is it supposed to be all peaceful and lovey-dovey? Is it supposed to always be transitions of power? Are we always expecting? It's usually really brutal and ugly and nasty, nasty things happen. Lives
All right.
change forever. Yeah.
I didn't want necessarily. You don't have to defend them. I mean, you're giving them a whole defense here. I mean, I wanted to know where you stand on them, and I think I
Yeah.
understand a little bit more where you stand on them.
Sure. Sure.
It's just my counterpoint to that. I don't know. Am I freezing? I don't know. My counterpoint to that would be that they're far left, and generally, it's just like Mitt Romney's famous quote about the 42% that wouldn't vote for him no matter what. It's just like
Right. Right.
he took a lot of shit for that at the
I
time,
know
but
you
the more
do.
I think about that, it's like it's true. I mean, it's like fuck it. If you're the
Sure.
Republican candidate, about 42% of the country is not going to vote for you no matter what.
Right.
And it's
Yeah. I
just
remember when
like,
that was
yeah, so
confrontational, or yeah, or yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
controversial.
So
I meant.
Antifa, I mean, they're doing what they're doing, but half the country, 42% is against them, and they're extreme, and so more than that, I would imagine, is against them. But I mean, they're doing what they're doing. Man, I'm just
I'm.
saying. I mean, they're doing what they're doing, but the
Yeah.
natural order of the swing of the pendulum that controls the reality that we live in is just generally it's against extremism on either side. It's always going to be
Sure.
rebels pushing against that.
Right. But I think, the natural pull, we've talked about this before. How natural is it in the sense of how much can we just expect it to happen and how much do we have to consciously engage in that to make it happen? And it's I think kind of like a Matrix thing. It's like when Morpheus tells Neo you're not the one. Or sorry, when the Oracle tells Neo you're not the one. It's like you don't need to think that you're making it happen, but you're going to make it happen. That's like what we talked about with religion earlier. It's like you you don't think about it because it's centuries years old, but you are in fact a part of the organism and help shape it itself as well. You know, so it is possible. It's possible to restructure. I think. Um, I don't know how to put this. It's possible to what's the word? Repossess, re-own, regain a sense of agency through something like Antifa, because I think that's more American and universally accepted. Again, the idea of anti-fascism is like I think the foundation. Maybe you know about it more than I do, but like I think that's the fundamental platform of what they're all about. And yeah, maybe you can say they're leftist, but I haven't even heard like when I think leftist, I think uh, I don't know. I think like LGBT pride. I think about liberal causes. Um, Sometimes I'll think like Marxism and like economics, but like I hardly even hear a call for that so much. They don't seem too different from Occupy Wall Street, I guess. You know what I mean? Um, and I just feel like they got a much worse PR case on this go around because the appetite from the other side, like Trump supporters or whatever you want to call them, is just so much more inflamed and become more mainstream that they're going to always be cast in a light that's just slightly more negative.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
Um,
tough. I can't completely defend or I can't completely condemn. I defend anti-fascism. Can I say
yeah.
that? Is that the same? Is that fair?
I mean, it's there's nuances to that, and we could go into that, but I don't know. It's like
Yeah. Sure, sure.
politics is a difficult 12th hour subject to jump into, as always, because it can expand hours in and of
Yeah,
itself. It's a
it's true.
multiverse
It's true.
within
I
a
would like to even
multiverse.
someday talk about is fascism bad even, you know what I mean? Like look at China. They're out of their corona COVID epidemic because fascism worked pretty well over there. They got to lock everything down. Now everything is reopened. Good to go.
I don't know, man. It's just in general. I guess people would call me a libertarian, but I'm just not in general a fan of states telling you what's good or not good. I'm an individual living in
Yeah,
a world that wants to control you.
of course, and I respect that most. I think I feel like for guys like us, we show our anti-fascism through our art more than anything. I think it's the way you express yourself and say, "I'm going to be different. This is my different. I know everybody else is thinking one way. This is how I think about this." That's anti-fascist to me. I don't think it's always against the state, but just culture in general. Um, and I think comedians have that in general. Yeah, the good ones at least. They're all generally pretty anti-fascist. You can be conservative even. Um, there aren't too many conservative comedians. I know that, but even the attitudes of them, even if I don't like them, the blue collar comedy workers or blue collar comedy guys, remember them? Yeah, your Jeff Foxworthy and I forget the rest, but um, yeah, all those guys had a really pretty strong streak of like, I ain't gonna listen to what nobody tells me, because, and that's anti-fascist, man. Um, and I don't know. I feel like we could unify. Labels get in the way so much. I really do. I really do think that's a big takeaway. They get in the way so much, and but I just generally don't see what the problem with the label of Antifa was. I think I'm not sure if they named themselves that or the newspapers named them that or somebody who didn't like them named
No,
them that.
no, the label is completely fine. It's just what they do. I mean,
Hmm.
nobody is against them against the label. It's just the
Hmm.
label is just like Black Lives Matter. It's like, hey, we don't like people hurting children. It's like that's a great title for a group. Yeah, no, nobody likes that, but it's universally agreeable. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like if that group is setting fires and all this other kinds of stuff, it's like we have to start to wonder about how's this related.
Well, it's interesting. The fires and protests and demonstrations, why they happen. It's an interesting subject. It really is because it's still open for speculation. Um, a lot of people don't think that those fires are all coming from Antifa. A lot of people are saying the fires are Antifa, and that's the only way to show a society that is actually fed up. A lot of people are saying that's the only way to demonstrate that the only thing people care about in the country is property. That's the only reason you have cops. You have to damage the property in order to have the authority show up. All these different ideas on why those fires happen. I'm not sure. If you don't know, like my school on that is I'm more of a Gandhian. I believe nonviolence is actually an incredibly powerful tactic and probably the one that you're going to want to use to have everlasting change. He was very smart. He was really smart about India is not perfect, but they didn't use all of his ideas. Um, but Dr. King learned almost all of his tactics from this idea. I think it's wise, but that doesn't mean I don't understand why it does happen. And I can't condemn why it does happen because I can understand it. If it's happening by the hands of Antifa, I do think and believe that they're not the only people causing property damage out there. I think that a lot of that is staged to make them look worse than they really are, um, and to scare people. Yeah. Have you been down? I think we talked about this. How you were like around the Occupy movement demonstrations back in the day.
Wasn't around them, no.
You weren't ever around in them or looking at like
No,
going through
man,
them.
no. At the time, I thought it was a good thing,
Mm,
but I
yeah.
wasn't around it physically.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, you go to? Have you ever been to protests in general?
I don't go to protests, no.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is like it's one of those things. I think it'd be cool to go with you someday just to kind of get your fresh take on it. But the truth is, I when I was dating my ex, her mom was furious with me when we went down to courthouse about 3 years ago. I think it might have been the anniversary of Mike Brown. She was furious. She was livid. She was like, "How could you take my daughter down there? You know what? She could have been killed. She could have been stabbed. There could have been like she was." It was like I was like, yeah. I think my point is like almost everyone has an idea of protest. I think they're always heinous and they're always violent. And frankly, most of the time, they're people. There's going to be someone there who brought like banana bread for everybody to snack on, just so everybody's not too hungry. And somebody brought some Gatorade, and somebody brought, there's usually a walking cooler just so somebody doesn't get too overheated. They're not scary places, man. They're generally really not. Things can escalate. That's what you always have to be prepared for. That's what you're signing up for, to be a body that's ready to take on the escalation because you believe in the idea that's not exactly defended on paper, but we know as human beings, like everything got moved to paper, like like really suddenly in our society. There used to be an idea of who we are as individuals without this idea of everything, your credit on an Excel sheet is going to define everything you are, and your life's going to be determined by that piece of paper alone. There was a time where people could look past that, and we could actually see what the benefits of a person, the value of a person. It wasn't always just that way to judge a person. So I think that's kind of the dilemma we're in. I think we're seeing these protesters and these movements in pretty much a one-dimensional kind of way when really they're more multifaceted. You look confused.
I, you know, it's an interesting subject in and of itself, which I think could go deeper than an hour plus some change there. So I don't think it's worth getting
Yeah,
too deep into
it's
that.
interesting stuff, and I'm just spitballing ideas.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just I don't know. Do you ever consider? I'll ask you this question: do you ever consider the both sides of the equation, like, because it seems like to me it's like it's a coin that always lands on heads of like we'll consider, but at the end of the day I'm pretty sure these guys are doing a good thing. And it's just like, yeah, maybe their mission statement is a good thing, and this is my whole thing with PC culture in general, the most left of the left in general. It's like, yeah, maybe your mission statement is good, but the tactics, the censorship, the cancel culture, all these things, it's a
Yeah,
lot of extremism. It's like,
yeah,
yeah,
and
it's like what you say is good, but is this really good?
yeah, I mean, that's a fair question. I think like the idea of what I think everyone's going to always be uncomfortable with the tactics that society uses to progress in any way. because you're going through some kind of change. Like, look at China. China had one of the, like the bloodiest, re-educations in history, and that's like a lot of people didn't like what happened there, right? But even here, and I think about that because we do talk about that, and maybe I arrived at this idea by just being contrarian and stuff. It's like how I can be sometimes. But really, I think there's something to this idea of what is so wrong, maybe, with pander culture. I don't like cancel culture too much, but the pandering, it's like, okay, so what if it's so clear, like when Nancy Pelosi wears, what did she wear? She was wearing some African garb with her Democratic congressional districts. I don't know. She was wearing some dashiki stuff. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was really ridiculous, and it was really, it was such a clear like you don't need to do this kind of thing. Everybody kind of felt like maybe this is crossing the line. At the same time, I'm also kind of wondering, like, okay, stupid, no question about it, but how, you know, people wear the wrong things all the time trying to impress people. It's not the end of the world. At least she was trying to impress. Doesn't that count for anything? Like, think of the alternatives. The alternative is is a dude with like what's that? The guy with the long mustache, the Yosemite Sam. You got like Yosemite Sam on the other side, man. So it's like, okay, I get it. She's not, you know, she's trying too hard, and it's really off-putting. It can be pretty off-putting. But
Well,
can't we cut anybody some slack when they're trying and they're a little off-putting?
I guess the argument would be why try in an inauthentic way to put on a show rather than in your policies that would actually make a difference in people's
That
lives.
is fair. Yeah, that's fair. What I'm saying with I'm not talking about don't defend your policy if you're not going to do that. And I think the Democrats, for the most part, have been trying to hold that shit pretty accountable, especially during this whole thing. They have a person who they can look pretty good against. So it's not like, and this was, you know, in the wake of should there be police reform, should there be investigations, should there be that kind of thing. So I think they were saying that, which would have been fine alone. The policy decision that they were deciding where they should be focusing attention or focus would have been fine alone. But then to go on top of it to do that kind of stuff was just the added stupidity. And what I'm saying is, it's not saying it's the greatest thing, but to spend so much time going after it when it seems like, there are more serious targets to be going after. Like, I don't know. It seems like part of the whole thing where we just kind of want to throw pies in celebrities' faces or something. It just feels good. Don't get me wrong. I'm
If
not trying to play Nancy's Pelosi's total
advocate,
or devil's advocate here, but I'm just saying, like this. If there's things to dislike about the liberal PC culture, okay, I think it's stupid that we cancel people. But the pandering one, I'm not so sure I have that big of a problem. Like if I saw, for example, like Walmart, and this is bound to happen pretty soon, but if I saw them like selling like Ramadan, abacus, what is it? What is this? The Christmas stuff where you find chocolates behind every day of the month.
the advent calendar.
Advent calendar. If I saw that like happen in Walmart where there was like a Ramadan advent calendar,
Don't even make sense, does it?
it makes a lot of sense.
The days of
I
Ramadan.
don't think I haven't thought of this. That's where my next cash grab is, and the next fatwa in my head arrives. But but for real, I thought about this. Like, if Walmart did do that, I wouldn't be that upset. I don't think anybody in my family should be that upset. You know what I mean? Like, clearly that's some pandering as bullshit. Now, if I found out Walmart was supplying like millions of its profits to military contracts out to take out innocent Muslim civilians and doing Ramadan overseas during wartime, I might be I might be a little upset. I might see some hypocrisy there. But general pandering like that, it's like, okay, I get what you're trying to do here. you're seeing me as a customer and you want me to come into your store, and that's just
Well,
business.
yeah, it's just business, but why? Again, I mean, it's just politics. Everything politicians do is just politics, but it's just like, as a person observing the show, it's just like, if I know you're not doing anything for me, but you put on a dashiki, like, why should that make me want to vote for you? And that's
Yeah,
more of the thing. It's just like when you see the show for being the show, it's like
yeah.
maybe me and you, it's like the show's not for us. The show is for people who will see the dashiki and say, I want to vote for her. And that's why they put the dashiki on in the first place.
Well, I mean, again, like the Zashiki thing didn't really fly, right? Like everybody was like, that was pretty dumb. Like you don't need to do that next time, right? Like, because I think when you try too hard like that, it'll somebody's gonna tap you on the shoulder and be like, and I think that I think that's kind of what happened there. And it's like there was no public apology or anything like that exactly, but it was like never done again, thank God, because it was too far. And because you're right, because there wasn't enough of a matchup. In truth, there wasn't enough matchup on what you're really doing for this stuff compared to what you're showing. So it'll get called out, and I agree that that's ridiculous. But I also think, I'm not talking about politics. I am just talking about businesses, maybe. But like, how much responsibility are we going to hold on businesses to solve these really difficult problems? Like, and to solve them perfectly. Like it's difficult. Like we want to advance in as a culture. We want to feel good about ourselves. We are looking different as a culture. Our makeup is different. So I get it if they want to update the college brochure with more more Indian dudes like us. I get it. You know what I mean? Like it's it's who they want to attract, and I don't know. I used to be a little bit more like, hey, wait a second, I see what they're doing here. I see what they're doing. But more and more, I'm
Right.
like, yeah, of course they're doing that because they can't do the opposite. I think we joked about this before, but like, I'm not sure about this, but I would really like to see like the history of the marketing behind KFC. Like, I bet it's actually quite profound. I bet it started off pretty racist. I'm just going to take a serious. Colonel Sanders' suit is gray. It's Confederacy is gray. Like, I don't know. All of that, just everything, just to me, is like, I bet there was a history of it. Oh,
I
you're,
don't know.
you're
He seems
breaking
like a
up
dude
again.
who really took a lot of pride. Somebody's fade now. Pride in his. He seems like he took a lot of pride in his product. Is what I'm saying. He just seems like he
Mm.
really was like, this Kentucky Fried Chicken. Oh, it's good. It's Kentucky Fried.
He really was
We
a real
we
guy?
fry it a special way. Oh yeah,
Huh.
yeah. He sold it to a franchise, and then they made it international.
I got you.
I mean, apparently there was like he didn't like that they. But anyway, no, you talk about KFC. What were you talking about before KFC? You're talking about what are you talking about?
Pizza?
I mean, yeah, but it's like, how did it get to KFC? Talking about authenticity.
I think okay. I was talking about PC culture and the idea of pandering, and the marketing.
Oh,
Because I bet it started
yeah.
off, you know, pretty ridiculous. I don't know. I don't know, but everything shifts a little bit more liberal in marketing, doesn't it?
Oh, right.
Huh?
No, that's what I wanted to say is like, yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, when you talk about marketing, again, I mean, marketing, pandering, yeah, it has a specific purpose. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
trying to judge a person from an objective point of view for pandering/marketing, they're doing it because they're trying to attract a specific customer.
Right.
Like, can't really hate the player on that. That's just hate the
Right.
game kind of material.
Right.
But again, for a person who can see it for what it is, you see it as pandering. You don't like
Yeah.
it because you know it's pandering. It's like it's inauthentic, you know?
Yeah.
It's the
I definitely got
inauthenticity
it. I
of
guess
it.
lately I just been like, man, how much energy can I spend like hating on it though? You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be so there. It's so stupid. It's so obvious. And like sometimes they don't even try to hide it, and like they look like they're trying to hide it, but it's just so obvious. Kind of like with the Nancy Pelosi thing. It was like, what? where it's like you have to call it out because you just can't help it. But otherwise, I'm starting to see it maybe as like maybe society is trying to just update its cover photo, on Facebook. Maybe it's trying to include the rest of the family maybe a little bit. It looks hilarious because we know what's going on and why it has to do that and what our real history is, and it can be probably a little frustrating, but at the end of the day, I think we just have to decide, right? Like, do we want to be in that family frame? How are we gonna do it? I like to do it on my terms. I don't know if I'll ever actually make a family frame. It'll just be me. But, uh, but I don't know. Maybe that would be another long podcast. But the real desire for a family in America today.
Man, I think it's related because I really, it's just like, when you talk about calling out the bullshit, it's like back in the day, all we had was the news. But nowadays, you talk about social media. Everybody's trying to create their own communities, and so it's
Mm,
communities of people who's like, this is bullshit. And when you call it bullshit, like, have you heard of Hotep? This is something in the
what?
black community, like Hotep.
Oh, I don't think so.
Hotep. It's like, so Hotep is kind of the conspiracy black community. It's a splinter off of the main community. And basically they're more like quote unquote free thinking, is
Mm,
how they, I think, would define themselves. And so it's like, if you want to be a big speaker in the Hotep community, when you see Nancy Pelosi doing what she's doing with the dashiki, you
mm.
call that out.
I see. I
That
see.
gives you clout. That gives you clout in
Right.
the Hotep community.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more as like we're trying to build these communities of similar thinking people.
Yeah. 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 I see that. I never heard that term before. Am I saying hotub? Ho.
Hotep, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I mentioned it to a few friends, my roommate, and there's definitely there's a subculture even like right next door to us or in our lives that you makes me wonder, and by this I mean like there's there's a completely different set of greeting and currency and exchange of values and ideas than anything that we recognize as like quote unquote Americans. So it's very interesting to see that on the rise, even like around here. And I don't think they've ever referred to themselves as hotubs, but like I've heard uh, the way they pretty much they believe that there's an alternate record of history that is more accurate than what we follow, and it really fucking interesting shit. Like they carry around like documents with them, and like the history is on paper and it's provable, and it's really interesting stuff, and it's pretty and it's an infrastructure. It makes sense. There's an operation. There's a system that's completely separate from what we do. um, and I wonder like that. I wonder where's the is the family unit still a thing like the American thing? Like I don't know. We're so splintered into our communities. I think that.
Yeah. It's like we're creating new families.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Virtual
interesting.
virtually.
It's true. Hey man, I should probably get going actually pretty soon. My stomach's bubbling up here. I haven't eaten all day. But this is good. This is a good talk. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. You want to do any improv or anything before you go?
Uh, maybe next time, man. My stomach's
Yeah.
stomach's kind of hurting. We a little distracted.
Right on. Alrighty. Well, hey y'all, check it out. This has been a conversation between myself and Habibi Ali. And yeah, hope you enjoyed some part of that.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, guys.
yeah, man. Yeah, we'll see y'all again next time.
All right,
Peace out.
guys. See ya.